Okay, yesterday we began the Mishnah on Lamed Hey on the base, the things that you're mutter to do, and the things that it's asa, but it's not asa b'hana. The first Mishnah was asa b'hana. This is the one that asa, and so we spoke about chalav. We'll get more into it when we get the next sugya where it's mutter, and we're up to pass. We're up to pass that they were pass of a goy is asa, but it's not asa b'hana. It's not asa b'hana. So where does this come from? This is of pass. And of course, we want to know how come we're not so machmir on that. Why we do keep it. So if you look four lines down where it gets wide, pass. Rav Kahana, Rav Yochanan, pas lehutru v'bezdin, as opposed to shemen, which they mated in bezdin, as the Mishnah said, shemen was they mated in bezdin. Then pas they didn't matter in bezdin. Now the Gemara makes a very cryptic statement. Nechal de'ikaman deshari. If they didn't matter in Bezdin, so Toisus learns, so we can afford then, so somebody must matter it. In other words, somebody must be using it, and we're surprised because they didn't matter in Bezdin. Says there are those who do eat the pas of a guy. Tichyoser Rav Dimi Omar, Pamachas Yotze Rebbe L'Sadeh. Rav Dimi is telling us that Rabbeinu HaKadosh, Rav Yehuda, went to the field. Behavior of the fun of pas porni, ma'afe saw. They bought him this pas that it would be baked from a saw of flour, and it must have been a very, very nice piece of bread. So Rebbe commented, how wonderful looking is this pas. So Marocha Chachamim Lois saw to answer it. Marocha Chachamim, what do you mean Marocha Chachamim? Mishum Chasnas. The Mishnah said, we're worried about intermarriage, we're worried about hanging around with the Goyim. So what do you mean they were wondering? Rebbe knew that. Why would they find Ta'asr in the field? Bishleim in the house where you be eating, and you might, Rashi said, see his daughter, and then there's a problem. But in the field, there shouldn't be a problem. Now, Kasvur Ma'am, that when the Am thought that hit the Rebbe a pass, they thought that Rebbe matted the pass. In other words, Rebbe had this conversation. He never matted anything, but they mistakenly thought from the conversation that Rebbe said that he matted pass. Rebbe lo hit the pass. Okay, this is what Rav Dimi reported in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, guys. This is what Rav Kana said, and this is what Rabbi Yochanan reported. Rabbi Yosef Item Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda Amar Lo Kachayim. I said that wasn't the story. Elo Amru Pamachas Holach Rebbe L'Makam Echad. Rebbe came to a certain place. Veroa passed the Dochok L'Talmidim. He saw that the pass was Dochok L'Talmidim. Meaning they were very, very hungry. There wasn't enough bread to go around. Rebbe ain't kan palter. Is there no baker over here? And Kesvurim Am. Mistakenly, Loimar Palta Avikachavim. That Rebbe was saying, isn't there a Koyusha baker? And they thought that Rebbe is mattering the Pasakum Vahu Loyam Ela Palta Yisrael. Amrav Chelboy Afiluman Yom Palta Avikachavim Loyam Morin Ela Deleka Palta Yisrael. When there's the heta of Pas Palter is only when there's no Palta Yisrael. Avamakam Dika Palta Yisrael be Jewish baker loy. Rabbi Yochanan no Afiluman Palta Avikachavim Hani Mili Besadeh. Aval be'ir lo. And each one is reflective of the ma'aser above. Aval be'ir lo, mishum chasnas. Eva havi komenachis v'achol. Eva took a bite out of pasakum. V'achol pasa be mitzvah. He was ate pasakum by the border. He was by the border of a field. He ate it. Amal Rav v'yitim Rav Nachman Yitzchak like the shloid. Don't listen to Ivu. Don't speak to him. The ka'achol achmadar moi because he's eating what. Now this Gemara is the sugya of pasakum. And it's kind of difficult to understand what kind of het there is there. In other words, mistakenly they went ahead and said there's they mistaking, and the Gemara asked, what exactly at the end of the sugya, where are you holding? What's going on? So if you look at Taisvis, the fourth Taisvis down, Mechal de'ikal aman deshari, mitagama pas mutter bebezdin. When they commented pas was not mutter bebezdin, aldi boy avishari like. If they wanted, they could have mated it. Alma like pashidi surai. It wasn't pashidi surai. In other words, they were commenting the following: they're looking around, they see Jews eating it, and they say, "We never mated this. We never mated this." Mechal that somebody did, right? And what somebody did? They made a mistake. They made a mistake. When we come samchu ata, I underline this. When we come samchu ata lechol pashal evdi. Kivin shlei poshet isur b'chol Yisrael. Since this wasn't poshet isur b'chol Yisrael, it didn't go ahead and think accept all Kal Yisrael. So I'd like to spend a few minutes on we're going to go through a Ritva, and I'd like to spend a few minutes on it to go through this sugya the way it appears over here. It's the Ritva explains everything beautifully. I brought down the what is this? Oh, yeah, it's on. I sent it out on the phone. I sent it out on the phone. This I didn't bring the original. I brought down what was paraphrased from. I'm not going to watch it. Sit over here. You can watch inside. So this is a paraphrase in the Sefer of Rav Michal Zilba. Upirash Ritva as an Inyan. We're trying to figure out where was the pas muta. How did this work out? Upirash Ritva as an Inyan. Kibimei Amoroyim in the time of the Mamoroyim nagu heta bepas palta shel goyim. Rabbi Yochanan, Rav Kahana, they saw that people were eating paspalter. V'alzel Amar Rav Kahana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, shepazeh shenoigim beheta lehutra bebezdin. What are they doing? It wasn't mutter bebezdin. Ela am noig beheta machmas sheto b'divrei Rebbe. The whole reason they were doing it because they blew it. In other words, they blew it. You hear this? They say, look, they're eating it. One said to the other one, how are they eating it? And he said, I'll tell you how they're eating it. Because Rabbi said something, and they said, oh. And the later Amoraim, they permitted it because there's Yerushalmi that says, Pashit, you need bread. Why don't you have a Jewish bacon? Only bread you have is Goyish bread, right? And you need bread. Klaimar, Sha'amoraim ha'achroinim, hitiru, the latter Amoraim, hitiru la'am, lahamshich linoik min hagai. They permitted him to continue along this way, even though, they should have stopped them. Guys, look at me, please. Look at me. They should have stopped them dead in their tracks. They saw they were doing something wrong. They said, this was never mutter in Bezdin, so what's going on over here? And what's the answer? The answer is there wasn't enough to go around. So you know what they did? Even though the reason that they were eating it was a toys because Rebbe said something and they made a mistake, nonetheless, they saw there wasn't enough to go around, so they said, continue on. Yeah, it's fascinating. Unbelievable. Continue on. Continues the Ritva. This is Mamish Lashon Ritva. Even though the side of the minik was a mistake, Shari Rebbe lo yitiru, Rebbe never mated it. Ein moyrim lehem le'isras apas. They didn't say 1 second, stop. V'tama dava, this is Gavaldik. She'ein moyrim lehem isras. Taka, why don't they stop them, guys? Why don't they stop them? Shekivin shegezeres pas, he gezeres shein roiv atziba yichol lambabai. Since the gezerah of pas is not a gezerah that majority of Klal Yisrael will be able to maintain. Ulechein mevur b'gemara lekaman, she'amru l'Reb Yehuda Nesiya b'yameinu tita lanu es pas. In our days, they mated the pas. And v'heshiv lehem sheyikru lebezdin shel bezdin matir. And they call us the bezdin of a matir. Mashma shalula is there. Without that, hayamater lehem. In other words, they tell him to matir it, and he says no. But in other words, without this reasoning, he would have mated it, not because of any isurdika reason, but they shouldn't call him a bezdin. It's matter. V'hainu mishum shekol gezer shein rebet siba yichol lamibar shayrish hadin she'ein sarach shum bezdin lahatiroi. Fellas, usually we have a rule. What's a rule of thumb? That a bezdin cannot be mata a bezdin that's greater b'chachma b'minyan. If you have a bezdin that comes, in order for a bezdin, this is when a gezerah. If one bezdin makes a gezerah, another bezdin cannot go ahead and change that gezerah unless they're bigger b'chachma b'minyan. Chachma is speaking about the level of scholarship. Minyan there's a very nice source I'll give you. It's the Tosfos Yontif in Masechta Idias, Perik Aleph Mishnah Hey. He says there, Tosfos Yontif, what does minyan mean? It's all the same number. The 71 is maximum, 23 it's the same number. He goes, the minyan of the either the minyan of the Chachmei Hador that would agree, or the minyan, the number of the age of the Rosh Hashiva. The minyan means not the numbers, but the years. Okay, so here's your problem. What do you got? You got a gezerah that they couldn't keep. Now you have a problem, but can the next bezdin go ahead and matter that? Now, we'll see in a second. If it wasn't the fact that Klal Yisrael couldn't keep it, they couldn't. But what happens when what? When they can't keep it? So you don't need a bezdin to matter it at all. They couldn't keep it. Fellas, when they couldn't keep it, the gezerah is not a gezerah. In other words, you need a bezdin to be mevatel the gezerah, but if they couldn't keep it, we say in Yiddish, there's this kind of gezerah. So why do you need a bezdin at all? So the Ritva is going to say something geschmack. Guys, listen to this. Ulefikach, therefore, okay. V'sharis hadin shein tzarich shum bezdin letiru. You don't need a bezdin, fellas. Once the gezerah was not nispashet, you don't need a bezdin. Ela shechasheshu lechvay bezdin arishain. They didn't want the bezdin, the first bezdin, to be made gelechta lahatzrich bezdin ktsas. Va'afilu bezdin katim en arishain ma'oid. Pirish. The reason why you need some type of bezdin afterwards, that people should mistakenly think, oh, look, we don't have to listen to bezdin after all. Look what happened. So, you know what? Just have a token psak of bezdin will do the job. And that token psak does not have to be from a bezdin that's bigger than chachma of a minion. You don't need that at all, because you really don't need anything at all. And the whole reason you need something is because of the chashash, what people are going to say about the first bezdin. Ulefika kol shenagu am heter al pi mash nasnu by ra bezdin chashiv hariyem kitoyla be'ilan gadol ukehet bezdin chashiv v'lechashu lesol lehem, and you don't have to v'lechashu lesol lehem v'kaim min hagam u'mikamakam le'yitiru el kfi mash natlu by ra's bezdin achashiv l'fis farasam. Nonetheless, they went mata only what, because of the raw of the bezdin that was chashiv. Al zeh amar Rabbi Chelboy. The hell heter was only where was the path of Yisrael. There wasn't any heter otherwise. Rabbi Yochanan and there was only besada. So it comes out the Ran is saying, Ran says Gavaldik. The Ritva. It's time like this. We have this Gemara. It doesn't make any sense that we should be able to eat pas. They asked it pas al chasnus. They asked it shemen al chasnus and yayin. Why does it say by shemen? It's off the table. Right away, it was off the table. It never, ever took hold. The Gemara doesn't discuss it at all. The Mishnah said it, the Gemara doesn't discuss it at all. Pas also. What's going on? Why do we eat pas? Why do we eat pas? Why? It doesn't say it took it off the table. So the Gemara says the Gemara, Bezdin never matted it. Pirish. Tamaroim are looking around, they see people eating it. They see people eating it, right? So they said, 1 second. We never matted that. So comes along, he goes, you know what the problem is? They made a mistake in Rebbe. So how does that answer the question? So now we understand that why they're doing it, but they're still doing it. We should allow them to do it. They made a mistake. Right? And the answer is, the reason why they allowed it is not because of a mistake. The reason they allowed it is because it was gezerah that they couldn't keep. They couldn't keep. The gezerah they couldn't keep. Now, 1 second. But still, the gezerah they couldn't keep. Don't you have the gezerah of what of a next bezdin? So the answer is, when they can't keep it, you don't need another bezdin. You don't need another bezdin, right? Elamah. You do need something. If you don't have anything, it's gonna cause a kilkel in the future. People won't have any respect for bezdin. So the reason why you need a token of something, and even if that token is based upon a mistake, as long as you can be toilet in something, that works. That's the Gemara according to Riva. Riva illuminates the whole Gemara. It takes the difficult Gemara and makes it like geschmack as anything. Okay. You don't have to be paspalti. It's a chumrah. I mean, it's again, but it's a good again. People do eat that. People eat entomins. People eat they do. But again, it's again. Is there heta? Yes. Is there a reason for be? Is there a reason not to eat it? Yes. It's available to me. Everything's available. Yeah, I think so. I understand. I think it wasn't shot like when Lowen's Bakery was the only kosher bakery in Brooklyn. Okay, anyway. So Geschmack. That was okay. Vashemen Shalahem. Okay, so now the Gemara is going to discuss Shemen. So Shemen never took hold, right? Okay. Shemen, Shemen, Rabbi Amar, Daniel Gazar. Who was Gazar on Shemen? Daniel. The great Daniel of Nebuchadnezzar, time, the great Daniel, right? He was Geyser. That's Rav. Shmuel Omar, Shmuel says, Slifasan shel kalim temeim oisrasan. Slifasan, the flavor coming out of the walls of the kli caused by the shemen, right? And it's tamei, that's the reason shemen's asa. There's a kasha that I don't know the answer to. If you worry about tuma, why do you have to worry about the stuff coming out? Just the fact it's touching the kli. A kli is tamei. It's going to be tamei the shemen. Why would you need the stuff that's absorbed in the wall to be tamei, right? Okay. Anyway, atu kula alma oichli tyrus ninu. The only people who have to need nizna tumim v'tayra kahanim. Jews, again, any regular Joe can eat tameitika food, tameitika chulin, as long as it's true or not, but chulin, yes. So that can't be the reason that they made a gezerah on shemen. El is lifasan shel kalim asurim oisrasan. The kalim of that were asa, the treifa kli. So the din is that what it's a din in issa. It's a din in issa. It's not mashman has nothing to do with chasnus. It has to do with issa. Gemara's going to ask that. Amay Shmuel Rav Bishleim Lidid Aminis Lifasan Shal Kalim Asun Asasan Haim Dechiyas Rav Yitzchak Shmuel Bar Marta Vama Darshav Samloi Ben Nitzivim Rabbi Shmuel Darshan Nitzivim Shemen Rabbi Yehuda Ubeistino Nimnu Olav Tiru Rabbi Yehuda and his bezdin came together and they mated it. Kasava Noisin Tam Lifgam Mutta. Now, I can tell you why they mated Shemen, guys. Guys, I'll tell you why they mated Shemen. You want to know why they mated Shemen? What's going to come out of the walls of the Kli? Some tam. It's going to be in there for more than 24 hours. We have a rule, noisin tam lifgam, anything that gives flavor that's off is mutter. Therefore, I can understand that. Shmuel says to Rav, the Amrit Daniel Gazer Alav, Daniel Gazer V'Asar Rabbi Yehuda and Nasi Mavatale. Can a gezerah be made by what? In other words, guys, Bishleim, according to me, that it was a svara, and this I can understand to overroot the svara. What's the svara? Treifa stuff coming out. What's the answer? You don't have to worry about that. But according to you, that Daniel was geyser, right? How could you, Rabbi Huda, go ahead and override the great Daniel? What's the raya? Ein bezn yachol levatel divrei bezn chaveroi elam ken gadol himenu bechachmu v'minyan. As we spoke out. Ella. So Amalei. So Rav told Shmuel. Samloi Ludo comment. You're quoting Samloi from Lud, right? Shiny Ludoi the Mizalzlan. The Mizalzlan the words of the Chachamim. Very, very funny answer Rav gives. The Mizalzlan in the words of the Chachamim. Amalei, so Shmuel said to Rav, Ashlachlei, should I go ahead and tell him what you said? If Rav became what? Embarrassed. Amarav, in Heimloi Darshu, and Lod Darshina, and if they didn't darshan a reason, I shouldn't darshan a reason that it's asa, Vaksiv, Vayasim Daniel Aliboy, Ashaloi Yisgael Bepasbag Hamelech, Ubiyayin Mishtov Bishte, all right? And this Neil went ahead. Now, Daniel, guys, was this young kid. He was taken by Nebuchadnezzar to Babel. He was obviously a very talented young guy. And Nebuchadnezzar found favor in Nebuchadnezzar's eyes. And he was eating by his table. And he said himself on his labor, I'm not eating anything. I'm going to keep kashrus. So he said, this is what his lashon is. Vayasim Daniel Aliba. He's thought in his mind, Ashali is gal. He should not go ahead but defiled the pasbag hamelech, but the pas of the melech, ubiyayin mishtov, and the yayin of his drinks. B'shtei mishtois the custom medaber, 2 drinks. Echad mishta yayin, v'echad mishta shemen. Good. Rav Sava Aliboy Sam B'Chol Yisrael Vayra. He thought about it for himself, and he passed in Kol Yisrael. Why not pass, guys? Because pass means pass is limited to the king over here. That's why we don't use it as a source for pasakum. Shmuel Savar Ali by Sam L'Chol Yisrael. That was his own chumrah, but he didn't go ahead and speak to all L'Chol Yisrael. So therefore, Rav wanted a taina that based upon this drasha that he did paskin, and Shmuel said not, and therefore Shmuel came up with the reason that was the first and shall kalim asurim. V'shem and Daniel Gaza. V'shem and Daniel was Gaza. V'ama Bali says Bali Avimi Noisa. Mishmei de Rav says Ba'ili Avimi Nasa in the name of Rav himself. Piton, their bread. Shamnam, their oil. Yenam, their wine. Ubonoseyem and their daughters. Kula Mishmeina Esa Davehain. They're all from the 18 things that Beis Shammai was Nimna and Beis Hillel. Going your Gimel guys in Masech Shabbos. They went up to the attic, right? And famous they made the Gezeris. So these are 18 things, and these are one of the things that they were geyser. The Chitema Asa Daniel Gaza V'Lekibel V'Asa Tamidi the Hill V'Shamei V'Gaza V'Kibel, and so therefore Maya Sedusa the Rav. Then what was the Edus of Rav? They said that Daniel was geyser love. Since his daughter didn't keep it, so it's not a gezerah. In other words, guys, Rav is saying Daniel was geyser. If they didn't keep it, the gezerah is not a gezerah. That's shmak like we just said before, right? If you look at Lashon Rashi, guys. Maya Suda the Rav, the Amma Daniel Gazar Olav, even the Dari Lakibel, since his generation didn't accept the Minei, Lav Gezerah. It's not a gezerah. So in other words, obviously something must have happened to made Daniel. Ella Daniel Gazar Love Be'ir, in the city where you have to worry about chasnos. V'asa inhu, and came along Rav, and came along Rav, and the inhu gazar afilu b'sada, and they were geyser about afilu b'sada, that they were Rabbi Yehuda is best. No, excuse me, Beis Hillel Beishamai. Beis Hillel Beishamai, they were geyser afilu about b'sada. Fair the Gemara, the Yehuda Hanasi Hechi Matzi lemishrei takanta de Tamidei Shammai. The Hillel, Vatanan, Ein Bezdin, Yachal Fatal, Direi Bezdin, Chaveron, King Godel, Men of Chachma Minyan, Ba'oid, Amar, Rabbi Rachana, Amar Yochanan, B'chol Yachal Vatal, Bezdin, Direi Bezdin, Chaveron, Chutz Mishmeina Asadavar. They could be Mavatal, even if they're big in Chachma Minyan, they can't be Mavatal from the 18. Shafilu Yavi Eliyahu, Bezdinai, who is greater, Ain't Shaimin Lai. We'll summarize in a second. So, Amar Meshashia, Matam, what's the reason? Hoyul Pashli Surah B'Rav Yisrael. But when is that? When it's Pasha B'Chol Yisrael. Shemin Le Pasha Yisrael B'Rav Yisrael. Dam Rav Shmuel Rav Abba Amrav Yochanan Yeshu Rav Asenu B'Badku Al Shamnon Shlei Pasha Yisrael B'Rav Yisrael. The Samcha Rav Asenu Al Direi B'Shimon Galil Direi B'Elaza Bat Tzaddik Shlei Oimim Ein Geiser Gezel Ad Tzibur El Kein Rav Tzibur Yichol Lamed Ba. You can't be Geiser or Gezer on the Tzibur unless they're able to go ahead and keep it. Dam Rav Ada Rava My Karo. That's the pasuk. It says. Ba'ma'era atem ne'arim, in a curse you are cursed. Va'oisi atem koivim agoy kuloi. Rashi, b'ma'era atem ne'arim, atem makab alechem gezeres ba'aro, you're makab gezeres ba'aro ubeklala, v'neser alechem, and you make it usher on you. V'yakach oisi atem koivim, and then me, you koivei goislim. Why? Shatanena shuv min arim. You have enough. The thing that was arar, and you're going ahead and you can go over on it. So kula. If you have the whole nation, then it's a gezerah in Eloi Loi. If not. So that's what went on over here. Now, just to summarize the different dargas, the different dargas about what you can't no, even if they get so listen here. Here, this is basically a summary of a Taisvis. These are the summary of the Taisis. Like Pashidi Surah B'Rav Yisrael, if it was never kept in all Kal Yisrael, in other words, not everyone kept it. Yacho Avbez and Katan Levatel Devarim Rishayim. We spoke out, fellas, that if even really you shouldn't need anything based upon the Ritva. If it was never accepted, fellas, you shouldn't need anything. The reason you need any Bezdin is you shouldn't have Mizalzel in the future Bezdin. It's a beautiful svara. Why? Because the gezerah is not a gezerah, never took place. But you need something. That's the hezber. That's if it wasn't accepted. Pashadi surah b'Rav Yisrael. If it was the gezerah again, it's over Chal Yisrael. Best in yachal levatel divrei chaveroi imasheni gadol b'chacham minyan. If it was pashad b'Chal Yisrael, then the second bezdin could go ahead and override the gezerah, provided that what the gadol b'chacham minyan. Okay. Takonis Yudches, the Takana of 18, right? Davar in Pashtu Yisur B'Rav Yisrael, if it's Pashat, Ein Shum Bezdin Yachal Avatlai. Af HaGadol Shmei Rishonim B'Chachma, even if the latter ones are bigger than Shammai B'Hillel, even like Eliyahu, the Gemara said, even Eliyahu comes along. That's what the diak is. Even Eliyahu. Okay, so those are the three daggers.
It has to be that Klal Yisrael accepted it.
Yeah, that has to be Klal Yisrael accepted, right? Klal Yisrael didn't accept
the 18.
Even the 18. No, if they didn't accept the 18, that was said. It has to be accepted. And that's the teretz. They didn't accept it. In other words, the kasher is if Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel were geyser on shemen, afilu besada, right? You wouldn't be able to overturn it. But since it wasn't accepted, you were able to overturn it. Since it wasn't accepted, that's the Gemara. Okay. That refers geschmack. It's very geschmack.
Why didn't they accept it?
Paiso?
Why?
Can do it.
What?
They accepted the bread and they accepted the milk.
What?
Why didn't they accept the
How do you know they accepted bread?
Didn't accept bread.
They said they saw they couldn't. They went back on it. I mean, the Gezerah, but it's saying shemen was
Can deal with it.
it's a kasher mitzias. I'm just saying.
The Heshi changed Nailed both of them.
Gufa, going back and explaining something we mentioned before. Amabali Amravimi Nisa Mishmei Derav. Piton Vishamnam Yenam Ubenaseyem Kulam Mishmeina Esa Dava. Hey. Now we're going to focus on Binaseyem. What was the Gezerah that they made on the Goyim? But not to intermarry. I thought that's the Raisa. I mean, what's it's Mashman's Gezerah. What exactly was the Gezerah on the Goyim? Ma'hi, some Rav Nachman Yitzchak, Goswell Benaseyem Nidois Me'arisasan. Now it's even though, guys, there is no parsha of Nida by a guy. There's no parsha of Nida by a guy. The Chachamim were Goyza, the Chachamim, B'Shamei B'Sil were Goyza, that even in their babies, even the babies before they saw Dam, that they metama like a Nida. Ukeniva Mishmei the Rav Amar, he disagrees with Rav Nachman by Yitzchak, Kula Mishuma by this Kachavim Gasu Behem. Right? They're all Gezerah been the same, all these Shamnam, Pitam, Yenam, been the same, all these because of Avodah Zarah. It's a continuation. The Chiyasir of Acha Barada Omer Yitzchak, Gazu al Pitam, Mishum Shamnam. In other words, the reason you can't eat their bread because you can't drink. We don't want you drinking their oil. Furthermore, my olmei the shamnam mi pass. Why you guys are pass at the shemen? Ella al pitam b'shamnam. Okay, you're right. They were guys on both pitam b'shamnam mishum yenam. If you're going to go ahead and eat their bread and drink their oil, you'll come to drink their wine. V'al yenam mishum b'naiseyem. And if you come to drink their wine, right, and come to drink the wine, you have to worry about intermarriage. Rashi says 4 lines down, mishum yenam. Shayayin boyer ba. Yayin causes a person to have taiva. They've been the same. It's going to bring you out to the woman. So therefore, it says the gezerah was to keep away, and now and the ben esayim mishum avodas this davar acher, and then once you get to ben esayim, you're going to worry about they're going to get you to be worry about avodah zarah. And the Gemara says cryptically about davar acher mishum davar acher, which the Gemara will discuss later on. Okay, so we have machlokes. When it says ben esayim, we have Rav Nachman Yitzchak saying that what it's because of Nida. They were made the din of Nida, and according to Geniva, in the name of Rav, it was because of Avodah Zarah. Pita v'shamnam ante yenam, yenam ante b'nesayim ante Avodah Zarah. That's the gezerah that they were geyser in the Beis Shammai Beis Hillel. Right? I'm saying b'nesayim here. We don't want you near them, but what's the worry about chasnas? It's going to go to Avodah Zarah. So what's your kasha? Why about Avodah Zarah? What about the girl itself? That's your kasha. Read the Gemara, Heshi's kasha. But the same deraisa he yichsiv leisischatein bam. You shouldn't go ahead and right. It says leisischatein bam because why? Because then you're going to give your sons to their daughters. That's what we know that they're going to give your sons to their daughters. That's what's going to happen. So Fred the Gemara kasha. What do you mean that they were goyser ben asayim at Avodah Zarah? Ben asayim you can't marry because they're going to take away your sons. Says the Gemara, the rice is Zion Umais. The rice is only on the 7 nations that Loises Chatem is going on. Avashara over this Kachavim Loi, the other ones you want. Vasi Inu came along Shammai Behil, the Gazer Afilu the Shar over the Kachavim. So again, Kasha being the same as the Raisa. The Raisa is what is the Zion Umais. And they were Goyza, ben Asayim, other nations are going to leave it to Avodah Zarah. Rav Shimon ben Yochanan the Omar, according to Rav Shimon ben Yochai, who's Irish time of the Kra, the Omar, Ki Yasser Espincha Me'acharai, it's going to cause your son to go astray. The rabbis call him Asirais, to go ahead and include any one of the Goyim who will cause your son to go away. What was the gezerah? According to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, it has nothing to do with the Zayin Umois. It has to do with any guy who is going to take away a Jewish kid, right? So l'chayr, what's the Gemara's kasha? What's b'nai sayim? What's b'nai sayim? What's the gezerah b'nai sayim? L'chayr, it's deraisa. Ela deraisa ishus derech chasnus. V'asina goysa afilu derech snus. To marry them is also, but derech snus, you would think otherwise. It says snus nami bebeis dina shel shem gazru. Dichsiv Vayomi Yehuda Haitziu b'Tisaref. When we said that Tamar was being taken out, right? She's being taken out. Again, the question is, was the Ram Avinu a Jew or not? Was Ram Avinu a Jew or not? There's a sefer called Pashas Drachim. The first drush is on that, the whole drasha. Anyway, so l'chayr, this is going according to the opinion Pashas that it didn't have been Noach, and you see that it been Noach that Shem was Geisad on Sreifa, on what? On Tamar for being Mizana. So you see that that it's Asa. And the Havamina is that she was with a guy. It must be that they're Jewish. And therefore the Havamina is that she was with a guy. Who else she could have been impregnated by? Must have been what? A guy. So you see that and Shem was going to kill her. So you see they were Geyser. Elo deraisa ovid kechavim, habal bas Yisrael, elo deraisa. Ovid kechavim, habal bas Yisrael, the moshcha basrei. Ovid kechavim, this with a Jewess, he's going to draw her away. Al Yisrael, habal ovedis kechavim loi, that a yid with a goya tanat, so inu goza afil Yisrael, habal ovedis kechavim, right, al snus. In other words, so there were guys, so Shem was geyser on a Jewish woman, Tamar, with a guy. That's what Shem came along. Shammai v'Hillel, they were geyser on what? A yid with a guy, a Jewish man with a guy. They were geyser. Snus. Says the Gemara. We just had Parshas Pinchas, guys. What happened? Pinchas came, got Zimri, who was with Cosby. Zimri was a Jew. Cosby was what? Was a Gaita. So you see, that's also us. So what kind of gezerah did he do? So it's working through the whole, going down the line, exactly what is the gezerah, step by step. Right? Damamar, Haboil Aramis, Kanayim Poigan. So Ella, the Raisa Bifahesya, Ukimaisa Shahaya. Bifahesya is Allah Chamesh. We've seen like the Maisa with Pinchas and Cosby and Zimri. But Asu Inu came along Shammai Behillel and Gaza Afila Bitsina. Bitsina, that what? A Yid can't be with a Gaita. Says on Bitsina Nami, Beisdina Shal Chashmanai Gazro. The Bitsina also, the Bezdin of Chashmanai were Gazro on a Yid with a Gaita. The Chiyasar of Dimi Amar, Bezdin Shal Chashmanai Gazro, Yisrael Abal Vedis Kechavim, Chayev Mishum Nashka. Nashka stands for Nida, Shivcha, Gai, and Eshes Ish. Kiyasar Rav and Amar Mishum Nashgaz is Nida, Shivcha, Gayata, Zayin. If it's a Kayin, it's a Zayna. So therefore you see the Chashmonaim Gaysa. So again, back to the original question, why was Shammai the Hill Gaysa on? Ki Gaza based in the Shal Chashmonai Bia, Aval Yichud Lai, the Asa Inu Gaza Afila Yichud. Okay, so Yichud with a Gayata would be Asa. Furthermore, Yichud Nami based in the Shal David Gazru. Dam Rav Yehuda Baisa Shah in the time, guys, with the Maisa we had Amlin Tamar. But Amlin was Ma'anis Tamar. They were Gaysa about in Yichud, right? Says Gemara. She Tamar was a Bas Yisrael. Inu came along. B'Sham Beisil Gaza Afil Yichud Avedis Kechavim. Says Gemara Yichud the Bas Yisrael deraisahi. Dam Rav Yechim Mishum Mishum Yitzadik. Remes LeYichud Min Atayim Minayin Shnemar Ki Sischa Chicha Beni Mecha. When will incite you, your brother Beni Mecha, your maternal brother. Chi Ben Av Mesis Ben Av. And Mesis is a paternal brother, not. Ela Ben Misyachin Amimoy. What do we learn from here? Ben could be with his mother in the same Yichud. Vein Acher Misyachinim Kol Haroyos. But your father is going to be what, married to another woman. Your brother's going to be married to another woman. Then you have to be Yichud. So you see that what Yichud is Asa. So what did Beis Shammai Beis Hillel do? So when Yichud Araisa Deishisish V'Asa David because I feel Yichud Penuya. So David was going on Yichud Penuya. The Midaraisa is what only an Eishisish. But Yichud Penuya is not the Raisa. That was David's Gezerah. Amar Shami v'Hillel do. Vas Talmid Shami v'Hillel. Goes afilu yichud avodas kechavim. Right? They would go afilu what yichud avodas kechavim. Okay. Okay. Well, I guess we'll stop over there.
Right.